covering people, systems, and solutions. So our services include process consulting, PMO services, product development, and enterprise solution. And we do corporate and public workshops. So this is our journey for the last 14 years. We have trained more than 12,000 professionals on the domains of project, program, and portfolio. On the consulting space, we have served more than 50 customers in deploying enterprise project management solution using Microsoft and Oracle Primavera solutions. So these are our partners. We partnered with TPG for, they are as a strategic partners based at Germany. And we are partnered with the Intower USA. This is predominantly for risk management. And we are also partnered with PM for NGOs. This is basically to support social entrepreneurs, NGO and government sector. So he's the speaker for the session today, Mr. Mohan Patnaik is the founding director of YEKA Enterprise Private Limited. He carries 30 years of diverse experience in various industries like offshoring, consulting, banking, and strategic change management. In his last corporate role, he was the head of global operations at a leading MNC based at Bangalore. So prior to that, he worked in a senior leadership role in HSBC, Cognizant, UBS, HDFC, IDBI, and Canara banks. So he has set up YEKA Enterprise, a kingdom company, to help build, serve, and invest in small and medium scale businesses and create wealth to transform communities. So he's passionate about leadership and community development, and currently serves as a chairperson of board of directors of World Vision India. So he's also the founding member and the master felicitator of Lead Like Jesus Society. So thank you for joining with us today, sir. We are so amazed by your experience in various fields. And these are few directions for the participants going forward for the webinar. So this is going to be a 2-hour session from 6 to 8. And first 90 minutes, the speaker will share the session, and the second half is for a dedicated question and answers. And the question and answers can be posted either in the chat window, or you can raise your hand, so we will unmute you, so you can speak to the speaker directly. And you can also use the non-verbal feedback using icons, so that you can find in the participants chat. So the participants will be on mute towards the complete first half of the session. And as we told, this webinar carries 2 PDUs. So all PMP certified participants can claim it under their leadership category. And towards the end of the webinar, we will share our assessment form in QR code as well as a link in chat. And if on request, the session materials will be shared. All right. So thank you for joining once again, and we'll hand over the session to Mr. Mohan now. Over to you, Mr. Mohan.
Thank you so much, Ratna, for that introduction. And good evening, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank Proventures and Srinivasan in particular for inviting me to do the webinar on the subject of servant leadership, which is very close to my heart. And you will soon find out why and how. But first of all, I also like to thank each one of you for joining this webinar. I know we are less participants, but the good news about being less is you get a lot more time to interact and make it personal as well. Normally, I'm not a teacher. I'm a facilitator. I would like to ask questions. I've done consulting for a number of years, and by virtue of what they call as the professional hazard, when you do anything for a long number of years, you get conditioned to it. So as consultants, we tend to ask more questions, and that's how I normally facilitate. So I do ask questions. Feel free to interact, though Ratna mentioned first 90 minutes you need to be quiet. Let me kind of change the rules. Being the speaker, you can interact. You can interact on the chat, or you can unmute yourself and stop me and ask questions, because we will have enough of time to go through the topic together. I firmly believe I'm here to serve you at your point of need. We are all learners, including myself. I don't claim to be the master in this subject, but I have been learning about this subject for a number of years. By virtue of that, perhaps I have something more to share. But we learn together as we go through this webinar. So on that note, I want to get started. As I said, feel free to stop, ask questions on chat or on unmute and speak as well. So as I mentioned, I like to ask questions. So let's kind of start with a broader topic of leadership, and we'll come back to the specific of servant leadership. But starting with the leadership, let me start with some questions. Okay, so that will kind of warm you up and know where this particular thing is going. And feel free to answer it on chat or unmute. The first question is, there are 17 of you. Do you consider yourself as a leader? How many of you say yes or no? Very simple answer. Put it on the chat or use the icons, whatever you feel like. We need responses. You can unmute, you can chat, you can show. Nobody is answering. Nobody wants to answer that question. Do you consider yourself as a leader? Now I'm getting, okay, I got 4 S's. Okay, anybody, any one of you think you are not a leader? Let me put it that way. Partially, Dr. Arun Kumar. Okay, we'll come to that. What do you mean by partially? And anybody else, either yes or no? It is okay. This is not a trick question. It's a simple question. You can say yes or no, or as Dr. Arun said, partially is also okay. It's important for me to know what is your current perspective or current thinking. Okay. Partly, as we are exploring each moment, okay. It's okay, I'm not going to rush. You need to respond, right? If you want me to progress to the next question. Okay, and please also unmute because the next question requires you to speak. Okay, so since only 6 people have responded, let me go. So why do you consider as a leader and why not? Maybe let me pick up Dr. Arun. You said partially, so maybe you can answer both the questions. Why or why not? Can you unmute? You can even put your videos on if there is no bandwidth issue. Love to see your faces as well. There you go.
Hello, sir.
Yes, please go ahead.
Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, sir. Partially in the sense, I can't guide more number of people.
Okay.
That is the issue.
Okay. So in your perspective, a leader should have followers or be able to lead more number of people. Yeah.
Yes.
That's the reason why you may be able to lead few people, but not many. That's the reason why you are saying partially. Okay.
Yes.
Let me pick up Vinay Paul. Why you think you are a leader?
Hello.
Yeah. So explain why you think you are a leader.
So just like you mentioned, I know where I'm going. I know exactly the path, what I have chosen.
Okay.
At the same time, I'm able to lead some of the people. You can say followers. So that is the reason I consider myself as a leader.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Neha Pandey. Partly, as we are exploring each moment, you can answer in 2 ways. You can say when you think you are not a leader or when you think you are a leader. Can you explain?
So currently, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, good evening, sir. So actually, I have been leading a group of 5 people, very small group of people.
Okay.
They are more or less alike. So at some moment of time, I feel like a leader just because what I think a leadership is all about developing people and helping others to reach up to their potential.
Okay.
Somehow or the other, when I have to go to a different kind of group where I have to ask as per the all the leadership credentials, it may happen so that they are not able. It may happen that I'm not able to align my guidance with respect to the new chunk of people that I'm having, where I need to align myself to match to the frequency they have, so that they can better adapt to what I want to share or what I want them to learn. And that's the reason. Whenever I start with a new group of people, it takes a little bit of time to get that alignment. And the moment that tone or that frequency is set up, then I can take them to the and help them to reach to their full potential. That's a bit of why I said that partially.
Okay. Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, Neha, and thank you everyone for responding. That leads me to the next question. But what you are saying is, be a leader, I need to have followers. I need to have a team to lead. I should also have a sense of direction, where I'm going, why I'm going. That's what I'm hearing. How would we answer the next question? Is leadership a position or a person? Okay. Again, put it on your chat. I would encourage everybody, whoever has joined, answer these questions, because these are not tricky questions. I firmly believe when you ask questions, you will learn better, right? So is leadership a position or person? Thanks, Praveen. Okay, others. Take one of these things, or you can say even both. Person. Leader is more of a person. Okay, very good. So far, the trend is person, not position. It is a personal quality. Then why do we say leadership roles? If it is not position, why do we say somebody is in a senior leadership role or position? Finally, I got Mahendra to say it is a position. Samir joining as a position. Dr. Arun Kumar, very good. Okay, at least now got more diverse opinion, right? So is it a person or a position, right? And we will look into some of these things as we go along. Just as we say that person is not a good leader, right? Yeah. So though we say leadership positions, leadership roles, but when we judge somebody as a good or bad leader, we say person, not the role. The position doesn't become good and bad. It is still a leadership position. That's a good point, Neha. Okay, very good. So thanks for participating. Encourage all others also to do. As I said that we are learning together. This is not a trick question. Okay, let us hear a little story by Simon Sinek. It is just simply titled Styrofoam Cup, and he narrates the story. Some of you might have heard this story, but it is worth listening to it again. So if you can just watch this short video, 3 minutes video, make your notes, and I would like to hear what is that you have learned from this little story. Okay, so let me make sure that my audio comes through well when I share. Let me just make sure that that happens.
There was a former Undersecretary of Defense who was invited to give a speech at a large conference, about 1,000 people. And he was standing on the stage with his cup of coffee and a styrofoam cup, giving his prepared remarks with his PowerPoint behind him. And he took a sip of his coffee and he smiled and he looked down at the coffee. And then he went off script. And he said, you know, last year I spoke at this exact same conference. Last year I was still the Undersecretary. And when I spoke here last year, they flew me here business class. And when I arrived at the airport, there was somebody waiting for me to take me to my hotel. And they took me to my hotel, and they had already checked me in, and they just took me up to my room. And the next morning I came downstairs, and there was someone waiting in the lobby to greet me, and they drove me to this here same venue. They took me through the back entrance and took me into the green room and handed me a cup of coffee in a beautiful ceramic cup. He says, I'm no longer the undersecretary. I flew here coach. I took a taxi to my hotel and I checked myself in. When I came down the lobby this morning, I took another taxi to this venue. I came in the front door and found my way backstage, and when I asked someone, do you have any coffee? He pointed to the coffee machine in the corner, and I poured myself a cup of coffee into this here styrofoam cup. He says the lesson is, the ceramic cup was never meant for me. It was meant for the position I held. I deserve a styrofoam cup. Remember this. As you gain fame, as you gain fortune, as you gain position and seniority, people will treat you better. They will hold doors open for you. They will get you a cup of tea and coffee without you even asking. They will call you sir and ma'am, and they will give you stuff. None of that stuff is meant for you. That stuff is meant for the position you hold. It is meant for the level that you have achieved of leader or success or whatever you want to call it. But you will always deserve a styrofoam cup. Remember that. Remember that lesson of humility and gratitude. You can accept all the free stuff. You can accept all the perks. Absolutely, you can enjoy them. But just be grateful for them and know that they're not for you. I remember getting off the Acela. I took the Acela from New York to Washington, D.C. And I got off the train like everybody else. And I was walking down the platform like everyone else. And I walked past General Nordy Schwartz, who used to be the Chief of Staff of the United States Air Force, the head of the Air Force. And here I did, you see a guy in a suit schlepping his own suitcase down the platform just like me. And just a couple months ago, he was flying on private jets and he had an entourage and other people carried his luggage. But he no longer held the position. And so now he got to drag his own suitcase. And never did it sort of remind me more that none of us deserve the perks that we get. We all deserve a styrofoam cup.
Very good. Now you can unmute and give your comments. What did you pick up? What did you learn from this little video? And this is linked to my earlier question. Is leadership about the position or the person? You can chat as well. You can't be quiet. If you are quiet, I will go quiet. Otherwise, you'll be forcing me to call you names.
Mohan sir, this is Vinay this time.
Yes, Vinay. Please don't call me sir. Just call me Mohan. That's perfect. Yeah, go ahead, Vinay.
Sure. I think what I have written when you ask me this question is position given to a person. So as long a person holds that position, whatever you have said, the perks and whatever the respect that he has received, wherever he went out to share his knowledge in different programs. So the respect was given to more of a position, not to a person.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? PS says he's confused now. Okay.
So
yeah, Neha, go ahead.
So the video all started with giving us a precise view what we actually feel. That everything, all the perks that are given to us, that is totally based on the position that we hold in currently in a particular organization. But it doesn't mean that if we are not in that particular position, we are not the leaders. The main point, the gist of the entire video was that leaders make their own way, even when others don't think they actually do. They already carve their way out. They don't need others to just show them the importance, the perks. These doesn't count so much for a leader. When whoever is a leader irrespective of the position he holds or not in a particular organization.
Very good.
So that's what my thought is.
Thank you. Again, I'm not judging any one of you. There is no right and wrong answers. The reason I felt I need to share that video is a lot of it resonates well with me and my own journey. A lot of you are still younger and you are in early part of your journeys. I've spent 30 years and everything which he said resonates well with me. When I was in the corporate, people gave more respect because of the position I was holding. And I worked on both sides, on the services side as well as on the demand side. So if I am giving work to, I'm talking about large companies, when I visit them, right, they make like a wedding ceremony, right? So they want to really make sure that you are most comfortable to the extent that you become very uncomfortable. They'll come and open the car door and all that, right? So, but that is the way lot of people perceive leadership as a position, both from outside and from within. I get very proud of my titles, right? What is my title? If I'm a chief executive officer, it really makes me feel good, right? Early in my career, I used to fight for my titles, right? I still remember many years back, I joined a bank called HSBC, and that was a UK initiative, not the Indian one. My offer letter said I'm a section manager. I like the word manager because I was the assistant manager in HDFC Bank. I like the word manager. I didn't like the word section. You know, what is this section manager? Never heard about it, right? So I didn't like it. But within few months, nobody liked it, and we put up a proposal. We need to change our title. And the next level was processing manager. That also we never heard about it. So we actually influenced the management that we need to change our titles to suit our country, and manager became, section manager became operations manager, processing manager became assistant vice president and vice president. So suddenly we got these titles with a president in it, right? Because the word president makes us feel good. And also it carries a weightage when I go out. If I flash my business card, people will respect me because of my titles, right? My title is coming from my position. Now, the reason I showed is many times that's how leadership is viewed. Many times we ourselves want to really feel happy when we have nice titles and a position to talk about, right? So that's what we are saying. But what we also see Simon talking about is ultimately we as a person, right, we should stay simple and humble. Yes, nothing wrong in taking all these positions or privileges, as I would call it, but stay humble. Those are coming because of the role or a position you are holding, not because of who you are, right? I can give any number of examples of officers or politicians. They get respect when they are in power. They don't get respect when they are in the opposition. Very simple, right? So that's how we see things. So I just want to kind of set the stage so that we understand the perceptions do play a role in terms of leadership. So let me kind of move on, and we'll cover a few more things. We'll talk about what is leadership. We'll get into some of our definitions of it. Now, is there a leadership crisis in the world today? And we'll look into some examples, and let's look at some other leadership headaches the world is facing. So let's start with leadership. Okay. Now, again, I want you to be quick on your chat or on audio. Give me some examples of a good leader. From your own experience of all the leaders you met, have seen, Give me some examples of good leader. What does a good leader look like? Type it out.
He's a motivator.
Motivator, very good.
He counsels you whenever you are not able to reach or achieve a particular target or milestone, whatever it is. He gives you a feedback in such a way that you understand what you have done wrong and how this can be corrected, rather than scolding you in a bad manner and demotivating you, so that you moreover you won't be able to perform going forward. A leadership takes everything in a balance, and it shows you the light.
Excellent. Thank you. And I'm seeing some good responses coming on the chat. Humility, good listener, leader leads by example, leader is supporter, coach for positive inspiration, takes it as a responsibility, focuses on growth and development of people under them. Excellent. Good listener, walks the extra mile, all valid. Visionary, right? Excellent. So,
empowerer, enabler of the team.
Enabler of the team, very good, excellent.
Stands and gives the credit to the team and stands in the front when there's a defeat. Also, he takes.
Wow! So he will take the failures on his chest, but when
Abdul Kalam is who comes to my mind.
Yeah. Fantastic, thank you. So when success comes, he gives credit to the team members. When failure comes, he or she will take it on themselves. Excellent. Loves people. Wow. So let's look at some of the characteristics which you already mentioned, others perhaps you haven't. Integrity, clear goals, clear communication, expects the best. Encourager, a good leader is an encourager, right? Stimulating work, focus on team interests and needs, and will be inspiring. So these are some of the characters of a good leader, right? Now let's move on to look into some practical examples. Who are your leadership role models? I've just put some pictures. They don't need to be any one of them, right? It can be anybody, right? So my question is, personally, who are your leadership role models? Give me some examples. You can take their name. If you don't want to take their name, you can tell what is their role. For example, my role model is my mom, right? So I don't need to give her name. I can say my mom, right? So why don't you just keep chatting? Give some examples of who are your leadership role models. Keep typing. Just the name or the role. My earlier MD, very good. Boss, okay. My role model is my father, very good. Couple of fathers have come. Not bad. Fathers are doing okay. They're still good fathers. Okay, others. You don't have? Okay, Jesus Christ for sure. In addition, Mother Teresa. Oh my God, my name has come up. A very kind Praveen. School teacher. Excellent. So Neha, you didn't mention the teachers can be leaders, right? But yes, your teacher is a role model, leadership role model for you. Very good. Who else? Nobody's talking about Mahatma Gandhi. Earlier manager who mentored and coached and groomed me. Very good. Some workplace bosses are coming in. Yeah, Jesus Christ. Okay. Anybody else? It's okay. You can just type it. Whatever, whoever it is. My professor. Very good. So we can see fathers, professors, teachers, boss. Very good. Excellent. Thank you. Now, do you fall into any one of these categories? You may be a boss. You may be a parent, right? Some of you may not be teachers, but some of you are, right? So think about you as a leader. How are you leading, right? So that's something which you may want to think about. Okay, let's move on. Okay, can somebody give me, how would you define leadership? If you need to define leadership in one sentence, even better is one word. How would you define leadership? Don't give me a essay writing answer. Just one word. Wow, influence. Praveen, you have all the answers, which I'm going to say. Okay. So I'll give it away, right? From the context of what we are talking about, servant leadership, broadly, there are many definitions of leadership. If you Google it, you will get tens and thousands of them. But the best and the most precise definition I got is leadership is influence. And you can influence anybody, anywhere, without having a position and without having a power or title. And leadership is more inclusive than what we think of. When I first started, how many of you are leaders? Some of you are not sure, some of you said partly. But if you apply this definition of leadership as an influence, everybody is a leader. Okay, so it should make you feel good. So pat yourself and tell yourself, I am a leader, and I'll tell you why you are a leader. Okay, because all of us can influence somebody at some point in time in our daily lives. Let me give you some examples. Okay, if you are married and if you have children, think about your children. Have they ever influenced positively or negatively? Think about that. Yeah, I have 3 children. Now they're more grown up, but even when they're small, right, they influenced my entire schedule, right? They influenced where we eat. They influenced where we go, right? They influenced which game we play. So there have been a lot of influence. And there are many people who influence us without being aware, right? Some of us are influenced by celebrities, right? Sports people or film celebrities. Possible we never ever met them, but they are influencing us, right? So everybody is an influencer. You don't need to have a position. So think about how you are influencing. So that's something which I want you to kind of take away. So let's look at who influenced you and how. Okay. Now this is where I want to kind of introduce some examples, and as we talk through, you will understand where I'm coming from. So let me go quickly into the leadership crisis. If at all there is crisis in the world, you can narrow it down to lack of good leaders. But let me give you some examples. This is coming from the book called Leading Business Beyond Profit. I didn't introduce that upfront, but a lot of material which I'm going to share comes from that book written by Charles Kotzer. He's a South African born. He did a lot of research and looked into number of books written, looked into number of companies, their values, how they perform, looked into a lot of leadership. And part of the thesis is what I'm going to present as well. So this is what the authors have said. There is clearly leadership crisis across various dimensions, and some of the statistics here may be eye-opener for you. 49% of the organizations globally experience economic crime on them in some form or the other. When we talk about economic crime, it can come from the customers, it can come from the banks, or it can come from suppliers or vendors or from the staff. So everybody is exposed to some fraud or corruption, the way we run our business. And that's pretty much half of our organizations globally. And this was staggering. 70%, as high as 70% of human deaths worldwide are caused by stress-related non-communicable diseases. And this has nothing to do with coronavirus, right? Coronavirus is infectious, but here we are talking about non-infectious, like your heart attacks, cancers, chronic respiratory diseases, diabetes, 70%. That is staggering. 78 crore people in the world are still living in extreme poverty, right? Now just imagine, right? Is this the world we want to live in, we want to have? Some more of those data points. Economic problems, right? The financial crisis, I'm not even talking about the current financial or economic crisis which we are just started, right? Whether it is 2008 and 9 crisis or European debt crisis, or there are a lot of other financial crises that happen. I being in a banking world, I'm more privy to some of them, and it is unbelievable. Political instability, I don't think we need to talk much about it. And this is global. I'm not talking about India alone. This is global, right? And some of the statistics may not even make sense for us, but I don't know how they actually calculate these numbers. These are all validated by the data companies. Apparently 577 billion people died due to political instability, which is 75 times that of today's population, right? In World War II alone, 50 million or 5 crore people died in 6 years. But what is interesting is the next one. Low employee work engagement. This is Gallup poll survey, a little dated, but only 13% of employees globally are engaged in their work. What do we mean by that? 87% of the people are going to work, are working, are getting paid, but they are not meaningfully engaged. They are working because they need to earn. There is another Gallup poll survey, which I have not put in here. They have surveyed 1 million workers, 10 lakh workers across 100 countries, and asked just one question. How often your highest gift or highest talent or highest strength or biggest strength was used at your workplace? 80% of them responded never. Which means 80% of the people who have a skill and a strength and the potential is never identified and put to use in the roles they were doing. That for me is an absolute loss of productivity. So the role of the leader is to identify what is the potential of their people and then be able to use them and put to work. But I want to, we can't ignore the greatest crisis of all, biggest of all, right? Nobody would disagree with me, right? At least whoever, I don't know what are your respective ages. Never ever in our lifetime we have heard or seen a crisis like what we are going through. And we are part of that history, right? The biggest crisis of all. And we still don't know what are the consequences. So I want to put 3 questions to each one of you. Okay, in the current crisis, who are the leaders standing tall during this unprecedented crisis? Can you see the leaders at this point in time globally as we go through? Put the names on the chat. Who are the leaders who are standing tall? PS says not one. There are few, but let's see. Anybody else? Any leader comes to your mind standing tall during this time? Because leadership is all about when things don't go right, right? Merkel, Angela Merkel, frontline doctors. Very good. Jacinda Ardern, the New Zealand Prime Minister. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, I'm glad that, yeah, German Chancellor. Okay, at least some names have come. How about the leaders? How did the leaders you expected to lead from the front are doing? Kerala Home Minister, very good. But where are the other tall leaders? Where are they? US is the biggest economy. India is the largest democracy. Where are the big boys? China is fast becoming the superpower. Where are the big boys or the girls during this time? Yeah. So leadership is tested only in crisis, right? Not when things go well, right? Okay, who are the unsung leaders making the impact? And some of you have already mentioned, right? Now, until that mass shooting happened, New Zealand Prime Minister, nobody would have known her name, right? Perhaps German Chancellor Merkel is still known, but New Zealand is a tiny country. Nobody, she came into prominence when that mass shooting happened. And obviously, they declared New Zealand as corona free, right? And there is another women prime minister in Thailand, right? These are unknown people. For that matter, Kerala health minister, right? Nobody talks about them. They go about doing their job quietly, yeah? So what we are saying is, it is only through crisis, in the time of crisis, the leadership really surfaces. The true leaders emerge only in crisis, in failures, right? Until then, you will have a lot of people talking a lot of big talks, but they are not really the leaders unless they stand tall when the crisis hits. Let's come back to you and me, right? How are you, or how am I leading yourself or myself and others? So this is more pointed question to you and me in terms of our own leadership. Okay, we cannot ignore the fact all of us are impacted. Our families are impacted, our works are impacted, our friends are impacted, our neighbors are impacted. If you think, okay, I'm not impacted, perhaps you are living in a different world. Perhaps you are saying, okay, personally, I'm not impacted. I don't care about those millions of migrant workers walking back thousands of kilometers, dying on the roads. I don't care, right? But the problem is, what is that we are doing, right? What kind of a leader we are, right? That's the question. And this is the roundabout way of coming back to that question of what kind of a leader you and me are. If leadership is all about influence, I'm not saying you need to change your work, you need to feed thousands of people, but we all can make a difference to one person or few people. And what is that we are doing during this crisis? Leadership, as I mentioned, matters during crisis. Okay. Now, again, I come back to the same question, right? What kind of a leader are you? Okay. Any answers? Some of you said that you are a leader. Now you need to answer this question. What kind of a leader are you? Take to chat unsung leader. Okay. If at all that category is there. We know unsung heroes. Okay. Unsung leader. I'm a leader making decisions. Okay. Let me give you a little bit more choice, right? Let me say there are only two kinds of leaders. Only two kinds of leaders, right? For the purpose of this session, and we are supposed to talk about servant leaders, and I'm going all around except for servant leadership. But the other kind of a leader is opposite of servant leader, which is self-serving. Yes, I'll come to democratic leaders and situational leaders and all that. But if you need to choose between a servant leader or self-serving leader, which category do you fall under? Pretty straightforward answer. Either or you can say both as well. Okay, you're a servant, both, Mukilan. Thank you. Others? Servant leader. Very good. Both. Yeah. So I think it is fair that we all want to be servant leaders, and that's the reason why you joined this webinar, giving away 2 hours of your time. But the reality is, while I want to be a servant leader, sometimes I become self-serving, right? The question is, do I become self-serving more times than serving? Is a question only you can answer. But when you say both, okay, is it 50-50 or is it 90-10 or is it 70-30? So think about it, because we fall under one of the categories. Yeah. So let's come back to the core of our topic, right? Servant leadership. So we're going to cover quite a bit, definition, characteristics, practices, and outcomes. I'll try to make it as practical as possible, share my own learnings as well. Okay. The most powerful leadership that leaves a legacy for centuries to come, and this is backed by evidence. You don't need to take my word for this thing, but this is backed by evidence, is what we call as servant leadership, right? Now, I put this picture, somebody washing the feet of somebody else. And the person washing the feet is the leader, and the person whose feet is being washed is the follower or less of a person, right, as per our own society. But there are 3 words which I have put here, and they carry a lot of meaning, and we will kind of uncover some of them as we go into. A servant leader is first of all a shepherd. A shepherd is somebody who takes care of his or her sheep, which means you have people under you. When we say under you, they don't need to report to you. Remember, we are talking about leadership as influence. They can be your siblings, they can be your neighbors, they can be your colleagues, right? But as a leader, do you take care of their needs? Do you protect them, right? Do you take care of their safety? Right? That is the shepherd's quality. And also, shepherd will show the direction, okay? A shepherd will tell the sheep which way to go, and the sheep follow. So you need to give the direction as well. The word servant, we don't really like it, right? Put your hand on your heart and ask yourself, would you like to be called a servant, right? Though I've kind of seen some of the chat messages, but clearly, who do we call servants in our homes, right? Let's be real, right? The person who takes care of our domestic needs, let me be more blunt. A servant is somebody who does the things which we don't want to do. Okay, agree? I don't want to wash the vessels. I don't want to mop the floor. I don't want to wash my bathroom. So I employ a servant and call him or her a servant, right? Servant is somebody I use to do the works which I don't like to do. But what was fascinating, especially across the board during the lockdown period, is the servants are out of work because they are not supposed to come, right? And I have seen some fascinating messages on my WhatsApp group, where the community where we live or where we have a house. And the biggest discovery by a lot of people is now they have seen the value of what they call servants. Okay. So let me give you a simple example. When the servant doesn't turn up to work, who is at a greater loss, the servant or us? If you are honest, you would say, right, we are at loss. That kind of nails down my argument for servant leadership. The one who serves is greater than the one who is being served. Okay. So think again, anytime, this is universal. The one who serves is greater than one who is being served. So we go back to the first video, again, all the privileges are all there. But if you go first, if you wash the feet, and if you serve others, that brings greater joy than being served, right? I remember a colonel in the army who lives in our Hyderabad community. And one day he called and he said that, Mohan, you have been telling us all these things, but now I realize how difficult is our servant's job, because for the last 1 month I've been doing, it's very, very tough job. I want to double the salary of my servant once she comes back, right? Only when he went through the pain, he could realize. Otherwise, in that community, people used to kind of a fight over, should we increase the salary by 500 rupees, or should we cut the salary when they're not there? All those kind of discussions completely change when they realize how hard it is. So the point I'm making is, the word servant is a good word, not a bad word. And just to kind of elevate the discussion so that you feel good to be called servant leadership, the highest government officers in our country come from civil services, and they are originally called civil servants. Okay, now we call them as IS officers, but actually they are called civil servants. The exam is called civil services. Actually, basically, they're meant to be servants of the civilians, which means the public. Even the word which we use commonly for the political leaders, ministers and prime minister, the word minister actually means the one who serves. Ministering means a servant. A prime minister means a chief servant. So what is supposed to be noble, we turned it out to be a menial, but actually it was supposed to be a privilege to be in those positions to serve the civilians, serve the public. So take heart from that. If you don't like the word servant, you can talk about I'm a minister, but minister basically means you are a servant. Yeah. The last one is called steward. Steward is not a word very commonly used. Basically, steward is nothing but somebody who is responsible for something that was entrusted to him or her without they owning it. The best example I can give, being a banker, is a bank is the steward of our money, right? The money still belongs to us, but when we go and deposit in the bank can't say it is their money. It is still our money, but they are only the stewards of our money, which means they need to keep the money safe. They need to give me interest. They need to use the money very wisely so that then when I need it, they can give it back. The word steward is a very important aspect of a servant leadership. A servant leadership in a nutshell, what I'm saying is, has broadly these three qualities, and we'll look into some more as we go along. So let me move on and get back to the definition of a servant leadership as was written in the book which I talked about. Wisdom Y, Wisdom E is the company where the author comes from. The book is titled Leading Business Beyond Profit. It is available on the Amazon. But this is how the author defined servant leadership. It is a comprehensive leadership practice that starts with an intent to serve. I have highlighted the word intent to serve. That's where it starts. That flows into effective leadership principles and practices to empower people. Remember, empowering people will come with the development of people. Build high performing and sustainable organizations. Servant leadership doesn't mean you compromise on results. It is still high performing and sustainable organizations to create a humane society while protecting environment. If you look into all these things, again, all the three things which I talked about of being a good steward, yes, you can make a lot of money, you can still treat people, but you can damage the environment. That is not good stewardship. So it needs to be more comprehensive. It is all about people and performance, but also protecting the environment. So this is how the servant leadership needs to be viewed. It is more complete and comprehensive. And we'll come into some of the other ways of leadership as well, so that you understand how this is unique versus how it is different. Again, the authors try to answer this question: why servant leadership? Because it is more comprehensive and it includes these aspects. Some of the leadership styles which we're going to talk about, I'm going to pick up 7 of them. There are more. Transformational leadership, okay? Somebody who's bringing about change, right? I can talk about Abraham Lincoln, right? Or Gandhi, right? They're transformational, right? Transactional leadership, right? Which means it's more business-like, right? I have a set goals. I need to take the company from here to here. It is very transactional. Authentic leadership. There is a book that was written on this. Authentic leadership is nothing but you will see the leader as he or she is. There is no malice. There is no pretense. You will get what you see, right? That's what is authentic leadership. And some of you might have heard about this book called Good to Great, where Jim Collins talks about level 5 leadership, and I'll talk about that a little bit later as well. So level 5 leadership is the ultimate pinnacle, and the author talks about the qualities of a level 5 leader. Ken Blanchard, who you will hear shortly, is he wrote this book Situational Leadership, and there is a program called Situational Leadership 1 and 2, SL2, where, and again, this is an important quality of a servant leader, but that is not the only quality. Why we say servant leadership as much more, it includes all these things and much more. Spiritual leadership, right? Some of us, we are, particularly in India, we are more spiritual people, right? We want to know the truth, right? So spiritual leadership is also included in the servant leadership. And charismatic leadership, right? A lot of people who are charismatic, right? So they can light up the room wherever they go because they just carry that aura about who they are, right? They will light up this thing. Now, there are many more, right? I think Dr. Karan talked about democratic leadership, right? But what we are saying is servant leadership is a complete package. It covers all these things and much more. And that's the reason why we are saying we need to consider servant leadership as the, perhaps I would even say, only way of leading people. Okay, the question comes, how is this different? It is different from all other leadership theories because it starts with intent to serve. If at all a primary objective, goal of a servant leader needs to be one, they are there to serve. And what was interesting about Proventures, if you see the tagline, Proventures tagline is called to serve, right? It doesn't mean that the PS is going to do free, right? But he may not mind doing it free if the situation requires, right? He will not stop from doing it if at all the situation warrants it, because his primary goal is, I need to serve. And when you have that intent, and we'll talk about this intent, where does this intent come from a little later, but that's what we'll look into. It focuses on people first. Always in leadership, there is a tension between results and relationships, right? I need to show results. I need to get revenue. I need to show profits, right? Then relationships become secondary. But in servant leadership, it is always people who come first because people matter. It serves multiple stakeholders. As I have set up this company, we were kind of thinking about, yeah, I wanted the servant leadership to be the core, which means it is people. It dawned on me that actually every stakeholder I serve are people. Many times when we talk about people, we think it is people is only employees. We are wrong. Our customers are people. Our shareholders are people. Our vendors are people, suppliers are people. Every person we interact in a business or at work are people. Now, they may have different roles, but when I make the people focus on people first, right? I want to serve the customers the best while taking care of my employees the best, because both are people. I can't differentiate. People in the customer segment are better than people in the employee segment. They may be different stakeholders. And in my own career, I have realized if I take care of my employees first, they will be motivated, they will take care of my customers. Okay. And when the customers are taken care, the results are bound to come. A happy customer will give me the business. And when the results come, my shareholders are happy. Right? Everybody in the scheme are happy because business is doing well. I can pay my suppliers, I can pay all my vendors and all that. So actually, if you think about servant leadership in one dimension is to serve and serve people, and people are everywhere, it becomes simple and there is no unhealthy tension should customers come first or employees come first, right? Because they're all people, they need to be served at their point of need, which means their point of needs may be very different. It includes all additional leadership dimensions, which I talked about other leadership theories. So that's it. That's how it is different. It is about serving. It's all about people. Okay. The purpose of servant leaders. Why then the servant leaders exist, right? I'll give you 3 points and we'll move on. So the main differentiator between a self-serving leader and a servant leader is the intent, the reason why a person wants to lead. Okay. I want to lead because my intent is to serve. When I lead, I serve, right? So that's the why question is the key, which is the heart question, and we'll talk about that a little later. Servant leaders lead because they want to leave a constructive and long-lasting legacy in the world for the benefit of people, organizations, societies, and environment. They simply want to leave the world a better place. They want to make a difference one day at a time, one person at a time. And when they leave, it is better than what it used to be. Now, that's a paradigm shift. A lot of us, particularly when things go wrong, we can become very cynical, very negative. Especially in the current environment, it is natural and very easily we can become negative and cynical and very discouraging. But just think about it. Do we get anything? We are just spoiling the atmosphere. And yes, it is real, but how can we make a difference? Let me give you an example from my own experience in the last 3 months. In the last 3 months, I have realized there is a lot more money I spent unnecessarily. Okay. And my wife also realized this, because when you have online shopping, some advert comes and you go and buy, even though when you don't need. When the online shopping is stopped, right? We never missed anything. The daily essentials all came. The vegetables were there, the meat was there, the food supplies, all are there. And my credit card bill has become almost half. What I realized is I just spend more than what I need, right? So think about that. Servant leaders thus lead from the heart of love and purpose. We need to have a purposeful life. We need to have a heart of love, and we'll talk a little bit more as we progress. So that's a bit of it. We still have 20 minutes before I open up, but let me introduce to one of my favorite kind of a writer, Ken Blanchard, right? I met Ken 11 years back in Singapore for the first time. Ken is known as one of the management guru in the world. He appears in the top 10. I had a privilege of traveling with him for a week when he first visited India back in 2013. Even at that time, he was, 76 years old, but a bundle of energy and full of warmth. I still remember quite a few things from that visit, but I remember this. We did a session in ISB, Indian School of Business in Hyderabad. The hall was packed. Even the education minister at that time was there in the audience. For the first time in my life, I have seen a politician refusing to go onto a stage, because Ken was there and he said, I don't want to be, I came here as a learner, as a participant, I don't want to be on the stage. And he refused to go. And Ken, in his own way, he said, I like India because this is a land of learners. So he started with that. And I am a lifelong learner. I came here to learn, not to teach you, right? So that's the mindset he had. And he always saw things in a positive lens, right? And one is his ability to learn, another is his ability to stay positive despite all the situations. I just had a chat with him maybe a week back. He's frail, he's now in his 80s, but he still have the same happiness around him. He still sees, yeah, the lockdown is not good, but I'm still happy to be vertical and breathing, right? He sees every day as a gift of life, and he sees there is always an opportunity to serve and encourage others. So this is what he said, and we'll watch a video from him. He said servant leadership, the heart of servant leadership is an inside-out job. It starts in your heart with who you are, your character, and your answers to the question, I'm here to serve or to be served. So with that, I will kind of get into a video so that you get a break from my constant talking. But as you listen to this video, I want you to make notes. What is that? Ken talks quite a bit. It's just 3 minutes video, but note down what did you learn, and we'll come together, see what we can learn from his short video. Yeah, and this is what London Business Forum has put together.
I really feel that the world is in desperate need of a different leadership role model. We've seen what self-serving leaders have done to the detriment of people in every sector of society all around the world. And so what we really need is people who are servant leaders, people who are there to serve first and lead second. Leadership is an influence process. We're all influencing each other all the time. So everybody's a leader in every part of their lives. The most effective leaders I know are just good human beings. They care about people. They listen more than they talk. They want to help people win. That's about caring, and it's about your heart. There's 3 key aspects of being a leader, being a manager. One is clear goals. All good performance starts with clear goals. And so people around you, if you want to make a difference in their lives, they need to know what they're trying to accomplish. Second, once the goals are clear, you ought to wander around and see if you can catch them doing something right, and give them a 1-minute praising, acknowledging what they've done, tell them how you feel about what they've done, how it's impacted you, and that's really important. And then if their performance isn't going exactly the way you both wanted, you give them what we call now a 1-minute redirect. So to say, gee, I'm observing your performance here, and I don't think it's as good as we thought it would be. Do you agree? And they usually will, because you're not there to punish them. And then you say, what could I do to help you get back on track? One of the important things about being an effective leader is to enter your day slowly with some sense of intent and think about what's on my schedule today. How do I want to be seen today? And then at the end of the day, put praisings in your journal.
Sorry, you can't see the video?
Yes, sir. I think the video
Okay.
is not shared. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. You should have
No problem. Yes, we
unmuted.
can
So
restart.
sorry about it. I will do it again. Thanks for letting me know. And let me know if it doesn't work. Can you see it now?
I really feel that the world is in desperate need of.
No,
No?
sir. No.
No? Okay.
No.
Okay. So let me see if I need to change the setting. Sorry about that. I was not mindful of that. So I think now you will get.
Yes.
Leadership role model. We've seen what self-serving leaders have done to the detriment of people in every sector. I really feel that the world is in desperate need of a different leadership role model. We've seen what self-serving leaders have done to the detriment of people in every sector of society all around the world. And so what we really need is people who are servant leaders, people who are there to serve first and lead second. Leadership is an influence process. We're all influencing each other all the time. So everybody's a leader in every part of their lives. The most effective leaders I know are just good human beings. They care about people. They listen more than they talk. They want to help people win. That's about caring, and it's about your heart. There's three key aspects of being a leader, being a manager. One is clear goals. All good performance starts with clear goals. And so people around you, if you want to make a difference in their lives, they need to know what they're trying to accomplish. Second, once the goals are clear, you ought to wander around and see if you can catch them doing something right and give them a 1 minute praising, acknowledging what they've done, tell them how you feel about what they've done, how it's impacted you, and that's really important. And then if their performance isn't going exactly the way you both wanted, you give them what we call now a 1 minute redirect. We sort of say, gee, I'm observing your performance here, and I don't think it's as good as we thought it would be. Do you agree? And they usually will, because you're not there to punish them. And then you say, what can I do to help you get back on track? One of the important things about being an effective leader is to enter your day slowly with some sense of intent and think about what's on my schedule today. How do I want to be seen today? And then at the end of the day, put praisings in your journal. What did you do today that you feel really good about? And then redirections. What did you do that you'd love to replay? And that'll maybe set a goal for you the next day. I think a good manager is more intentional in their behavior, not caught in the rat race. And the problem with the rat race is even if you win it, you're still a rat. I like to look at it, the difference between success and significance. I think when people are focusing on success, they're thinking about how much money they make, the recognition they get for their efforts and their power and status. When that's who you think you are, the only way you can maintain your feelings of self-worth is to get more of those. And I think then you miss significance, which to me, the opposite of making money is generosity of your time, your talent, your treasure. And a fourth one, touch, reaching out to people. What's the opposite of recognition? It's service. And what's the opposite of power and status? It's loving relationships. Because when all is said and done in life, when you're gone and you die, the only thing you get to take with you is your soul. And that's where you store who you love and who loved you.
Okay. Hopefully you are able to hear that. Now unmute yourself or put comments. What did you learn from this video? What did you learn?
So to be very precise, the leaders are not a part of the rat races. They have a clear goal, and they acknowledge acknowledges their team. They praise their team rather than scolding them.
Okay.
And they care about the people, and they listen more, and they talk less, and they are more generous.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Very good. Praise, see people 1 minute engagement, listening, caring. They're good human beings, care about people, listen. Wonderful. Being clear about their goals. I think you listen very well. You have done a great job. Serve first, lead second. Generous. Okay. So let me capture that for you. I think you covered most of them. Good leaders serve first, lead second. Leadership is influence. Everyone is a leader in every part of their lives. They have a caring heart, right? Then he talks about three things. Those of you who don't know Ken, he came to limelight through his book called 1 Minute Manager. And in his 1 Minute Manager, which became a all-time success, he talks about 1 minute goals, 1 minute appreciation, and 1 minute reprimand. So it's kind of a little change. No, clearly, as a leader, you need to set clear goals that gives the direction. Then appreciation, right? Finding people doing things right. And it doesn't need to be big things. I'm like that. So I want something big to appreciate. But Ken says, pick up things in small things they do well. Appreciate them, encourage them. That will motivate them to do better. Coach them. When they make mistakes, earlier the word was called reprimand. So it is now changed to redirect, which means, yeah, you are doing in the wrong direction. Right? Let us redirect, and more importantly, help them to go in the right direction, go the full stretch. So those are some of the things he talked about. And he also talked about it is all about the intent, right? You wake up in the morning slowly with the intent, with a purpose. And also when you end the day, bit of a performance appraisal. Okay, what has gone well, right? Be happy about it. What needs to be changed or redirected? So that evaluation process is also quite important. Then he talked about success versus significance, and I'll talk about that a little later. But this, which Neha talked about, in a rat race, even if you win, you are still a rat. Very profound. We live in a competitive world, right? And there is only one role, one leader, one CEO, and everybody wants to be there, right? So that's what we call as rat race, because you are going after a position, because the position gives you something better. So instead, we need to kind of not get into the rat race, give our best and stick to these basics, and sometimes it may come your way that you will be on the top. Yeah, very good. You've done well. You captured most of them. So let me kind of come back to some research. I'm going back to this book where he talks about a loving heart. We don't really use the word love in our vocabulary at work. But here, when we talk about love, we are talking about the compassion, the care for the people, right? It comes from inward. It is not coming from my mind, because I genuinely want people to be doing well. I want my team members to be better than me. Maybe let me give you this example. It has happened maybe almost 18 years back. I was working in this bank. I had a leader. I had a manager who was from UK. She was very nice, and she was very senior to me. At least at that time, she was 2 or 3 levels higher than me. So one day she called me inside and said, "We are very happy with your performance. We want to promote you, but can you go to Bangalore and set up the office for us?" So I was given a promotion. I was an assistant vice president, and they gave me a vice president and asked me to go and set up. So this is way back in 2003. I came as a matter of courtesy. I've said, thank you for the confidence you had in this position, because I was actually replacing an expat. And I said, I will try and do my best. And to my surprise, the response she gave was, you fully deserve your promotion. Not only you will do well here, you have so much of potential in you. One day, I want to see you grow so well that I want to work under you. Now, for me, That is the quality of a servant leader. She wanted me, who is 2 or 3 levels lower, she saw a potential and she wanted genuinely for me to grow to my potential where she wanted to work under me. Now tell me, how many of us would like to say that to our people? Which means she's putting others ahead of her. She's seeing the potential in others. She genuinely, her intent is, I want to make Mohan the best as he can be, right? Sure enough, after maybe 14, 15 years, right? I went out of the company, worked for 7 years, came back into the company. I came 1 level higher than her. Now, the reason I'm sharing is that is the quality of a servant leader. They want others to win, right? Now, what you see, you might have read this, is companies that did business from the foundation of love and purpose and practice servant leadership produce over 1,000% return to shareholders over a 10-year period. Okay, and this is a research base. This is not my numbers, right? We all talk about good to great companies, and these companies have outperformed 8 times, right? And this is coming from this book. The book is called Firms of Endearment by Sisodia, Wolf, and Seth. There are 3 authors who did this, right? But what struck to me is these 2 things. They said companies that care for all stakeholders equally, right? And I talked about this earlier: employees, customers, investors, partners, society. If you see, the common thing across all the 5 is people, right? So it is not one against another. Everybody is people. Everybody needs to be looked after equally. That's what they said. And they concluded, right, that these companies had a humanistic soul. So the point of a heart of a servant leader is comes with the love and purpose. It focuses on people. It focuses on everybody. So let me quickly go into the characteristics of self-serving versus servant leader. We don't have much time. I'll share the notes if you want, but I want to quickly highlight few things. I have highlighted there are 2 major, all these are qualities of self-serving, but I've highlighted 2 in particular in terms of in red. Fear and pride drives the self-serving, right? Fear of failure, we'll talk about some of those things. On the other side, I have highlighted in green, courage or resoluteness, humility plays an important role. And I have also put it on bold, which some of it Ken talked about, others focused. I will always, as a servant leader, need to put others first. I listen more than I talk. Say, we use the word we more than me or I, right? Treat failures as learning moments. So that's how the difference in the characteristics of the servant versus self-serving. We'll look into some of the other things we talked about, authenticity or situational leadership. Going back to the self-serving leaders, all of us, including me, sometimes, right, when things don't go well, my ego comes into picture. And there are 2 factors which prevent me from being a servant leader, which is my pride or fear. Pride comes when primarily under 2 circumstances. When I do very well, I become proud. When others start praising me, it can make me proud. Is it wrong? Feeling happy is not wrong. But again, if I use the word, okay, I, me, instead of it's a team effort, I don't give credit to others. It is me, right? That is, pride can really make me a self-serving. Fear, on the other hand, comes with failure, right? Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of what others think, fear of what my boss thinks, my spouse thinks. So this is originating from a word which we commonly use called ego. On the other side, so again, I'll look into some of the other challenges, right? Judgmental spirit, right? I always be critical, right? Fear of rejection, fear of failure. conflict of values, right? Very often I have this problem, right, where I'm more of a black and white guy, and my boss used to say, one of the boss, I had many bosses, used to say, Mohan, you need to be gray, right? Particularly when you are selling, a bit of exaggeration is okay. I said, it is not okay for me. We need to promise what we can deliver, we intend to deliver, right? Relativism, right? Somebody else is doing much far worse things, it is okay, right? They're giving more bribes, it is okay to give some kind of a freebies, right? So it is relative. The expectations, right? I'm expected to do certain things in my role, or social pressures, right? These are the things which there are challenges of a servant leader at work. On the other side, the two qualities of servant leaders, again, I want to highlight, is humility and resoluteness. Good to Great, when the authors wrote that book, the level 5 leader, these are the two qualities it talks about. Level 5 leaders have humility, which means they always put others first. They don't take credit. They will give the credit to the team. They're humble even in success. And they were resolute in crisis, right? When crisis happens, they are the first people who will be there in the forefront, right? And they want to really come and help people, right? So they're determined, they're courageous. Okay, so quickly, I'll do a few more and then I will open it up, right? The self-serving leader abuses positional power to accomplish selfish ambition. I have power, I misuse them, and we see a lot of them very regularly. They use fear, control, and pressure to improve work performance. It works, and I have seen some of those kind of leaders. When companies are not doing well, they will bring in somebody who can drive through fear, control, pressure, high targets. Sometimes results come, but they come which are very short term in nature, right? I worked in a bank which was making losses, and there was another bank which is ready to buy, but they have put some targets saying that, okay, if you achieve these targets, we'll buy. And they also got a CEO who was a driven CEO. So he put the fear, if you don't perform, you will lose the job, right? Yes, people worked for 16 hours, people performed, ultimately we got the results. But that lasted very, very short period, because people started leaving, people started really getting frustrated. Then they brought another leader who's a servant leader, who was able to bring in that healing and bring in that both a balance between results and relationships. So we need to look at servant leaders use positional power to serve others. They don't really look at what is that I gain, but what is that I can give. They use talent alignment, empowerment, purpose, and support enhance the work performance. They will stand by, they will invest in developing people. So that's how the practices between these two. And I'll just kind of do one more and then go into so maybe I'll share this slide. What are the outcomes between a self-serving and servant leader? We don't like the self-serving leader, but let's look at some of the aspects or the outcomes of a serving leader, right? So they are good stewards. They take responsibility. They make sure that the things are in the right place and done in the right way. They will use the organizational performance through empowerment. They don't control everything themselves. Integrity is a big part. Come what may, they will not cut corners. They will enhance the reputation, the customer focus. Their employee engagement is high. They have this serving culture, right? Now, quickly, last slide, and then I will close, right? We all crave for success, because success, what does success mean? What are my qualifications, right? If I'm a PhD, yeah, I can have a title like doctor. My position, my title, I used to work for a company which had very fancy titles like executive director, right? But I used to have that title, and I used to be very proud because it gives me that prominence and the social factor. So position and title. And Ken talks about, right? It is about your money, right? Popularity or recognition, right? So it is moving into significance. How is significance different? If you see, significance always talks about others. It is not about me. It is about how can I develop others. I talked about my ex-boss, right? Who was focused not on herself, about others. They will influence and make a larger impact. When they go first, others will feel, and after 18 years, I'm talking about that leader, right? So they influence and make that impact, and I'm sharing with all of you, and possibly you will take it for granted and you want to develop others. So that's how the impact goes, right? The legacy and the generosity, right? Ken talked about, it's not about what I have, but it's all about what's the legacy I can leave. What is we will be more generous with our time, talent, treasure, and touch. And it builds loving relationships, right? So where do you want to be, right? If you want to be successful, yes, success can come, but it will last for a short period of time. But if you want to significance, that will last for eternity, right? There are a couple of people who lost their lives who are my kind of a prominent leaders. One was Dr. Ravi Zacharias, and another was David Pawson. Now, both of them left a legacy, right, which will remain, right? There are a lot of other people who died, prominent people, but we will forget. So it is all about what is the lasting one. That's what will give us the significance. Okay. So I will end the talk with a short video again by Simon Sinek. As you watch this, we will kind of, it talks about what we learned, putting others first, or he wrote a book called Leaders Eat Last. So what's this? As you watch this, gather your questions, and I'm happy to take the questions. So with this, I'm done. Yeah.
I always say that, you know, there's, if you
are able to hear and see?
Yes, sir, both of you.
Okay.
If you hire people just because they can do a job, they'll work for your money. But if you hire people who believe what you believe, they work for you with blood and sweat and tears.
Simon Sinek is an author and leadership expert. His TED Talk, How Great Leaders Inspire Action, has more than 14 million online views. His new book is called Leaders Eat Last, Why Some Teams Pull Together and Others Don't. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So what's the most important thing for a leader to understand and be?
Fundamentally, a leader is like a parent. You know, just like a parent, we put the lives of our children before our own. We want them to grow up, become confident, and go on and achieve more than we could for ourselves. Leadership is exactly the same. You know, leaders are the ones who are willing to risk, when it matters, their own interests so that others may advance.
You said that it's really important, though, that you put your head and your heart into it. And that really, when you work together, you said nobody bonds over deadlines, they bond over camaraderie. And that's what people need to understand in a work environment. Bosses need to understand.
We are naturally cooperative animals. Our natural inclination is to trust and cooperate. But trust and cooperation are not instructions. I can't just tell you to trust me. And I can't simply tell two people, I want you guys to cooperate. Trust and cooperation are feelings produced by the environment in which we're working. And that environment is created by the leaders. And when we feel safe, when we feel that our leaders have our interests in mind, the natural reaction, the natural human reaction is we look out for each other, we work harder, we're more innovative, we offer our ideas and our best talents.
All of it sounds good, Simon, but companies need to make money.
They absolutely need to make money. And this is the great irony, right? This is the great irony, which is when our leaders put our interests first, we work harder and they make more money.
And you have a great example in why you called this book Leaders Eat Last. Tell us how you got that title.
It comes from a conversation I had with a Marine Corps general, Lieutenant General George Flynn, who actually wrote the foreword to the book. And I asked him, what makes the Marines so wonderful? And he said to me, officers eat last. And he's absolutely right. When you go to any chow hall anywhere in the world, you will see the Marines line up in rank order. Most junior first, most senior last. It's not in any rule book, and nobody tells them they have to. They do it because that's how they view leadership. We view leadership as a rank. They view it as a responsibility.
Yes.
So how do you foster that in a work environment? How do you be a leader and foster that?
Create that culture.
Create that
So
culture.
leadership is a choice, just like becoming a parent is a choice. Having the child is the fun part. You know, it's the raising of the child that's the hard part. It's exactly the same. Starting the company, that's the fun, you know? But actually becoming the leader, choosing to put people's interests before your own, that's a choice.
So how did you become an expert on leadership?
I'm uncomfortable calling myself an expert in anything, to be quite frank. I'm a student of leadership.
Yes, well,
expert.
Yeah, don't believe everything you read. I'm a student of leadership.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by it. I'm fascinated by the people in the organizations that seem to outperform the rest of us. And the great irony is the great leaders, that the ones that put us before themselves, the ones that put people before numbers, that would sooner sacrifice numbers to save people and would never sacrifice people to save numbers, ironically, they're the ones that enjoy greater long-term success, greater innovation, greater productivity, greater
Bob
loyalty.
Chapman is a good example of that.
Bob Chapman is one of the best examples.
Just give a little anecdote about Bob Chapman.
Absolutely. Bob Chapman runs about a $1.7 billion company based in St. Louis. Good old-fashioned blue-collar American manufacturing. When 2008 hit, they lost 30% of their business overnight. But Bob, who doesn't believe in head counts, he believes in heart counts, refused to lay anybody off.
That's great.
And so what they had was a furlough program. Everybody from secretary to CEO had to take 4 weeks of unpaid vacation. They could take it anytime they wanted. They didn't have to take it consecutively. But it was how Bob announced it that was most important. He said, it's better we should all suffer a little than any of us should have to suffer a lot.
Wow.
There's an interesting thing about leadership, too, is the ability to define the mission and how each person has a responsibility in that mission.
Well, this is what they do. They set a course. They set a direction. The leader is actually not the one out there doing all the work. Exactly. They're not in the weeds. They're pointing in the distant future what we can achieve and leave it to us to get there.
And give everybody ownership of the mission.
Most importantly, why would we be excited to partake in something and feel valuable if we don't even get responsibility for our own work?
Simon, you've had the last word, and let me tell you, you're sounding like an expert to me.
Well, thank you very much.
That's what you're sounding like over here.
Thank you.
May I mention the book one more time? Simon Sinek. There it is.
An expert on leadership.
An expert.
Okay. So with that, we come to an end. It is time for Q&A, and I know I overran and gave you less time for Q&A. Please unmute and ask questions.
All right. Thank you, sir. I would call this as one of the extraordinary sessions we have heard anytime recently now. And like me, like all of us, it is a very great learning experience in terms of life skills, especially at the current situation, how to deal our workspace, also personally, in order to inspire and motivate people. So definitely we will carry your session for a long time with us. So I request the participants to ask your questions to Mohan sir, so he will address it. Either you can unmute yourself and speak, or you can put it in chat. So anything, if you want to share anything, ask him anything about the session.
Yeah, a lot was said, but I like what the last video talked about Bob, right? He doesn't believe in head counts, he believes in heart counts. I think that summarizes as servant leadership. Servant leadership is all about heart, it's all about people, right? So put your questions on chat or unmute.
Yes. Anyone who wants to give feedback about this session? Want to know more about anything, any of the topics or chapters in further? You can ask.
Very silent. Either you don't want to ask, or either I have given all the answers, or you didn't understand anything which I've said.
No, it was the enlightening session. Anyone wants to, Neha, you wants to share anything about the session? Ask anything?
About the session was really great. It really gave me a different perspective of what the leader should be. Just because I have not been, I have never got a leader as the sir has said, or in all the videos that what they have defined, I have not got the opportunity till date to be work with some leaders like that. So more of a self-driving kind of thing, as we all have. Well, I have personally worked it, but I would like to adapt partly what Fred has said to start off with, and I would like to adapt and help my reportees to work as a team and with a particular direction and have all those qualities, at least try to have all the qualities that Mohan has just recently said.
Exactly. So everyone
Excellent,
have
Neha.
that.
Yeah, excellent. I think, as I mentioned upfront in the global leadership crisis or COVID, right? We may not see many servant leaders because they are not on the center stage, right? But when you don't get disheartened, be one, right? Now that you have learned, right, you can change your life. You can change and influence your team members, your colleagues. Be one, right? That's the best way to start on servant leadership. So thank you.
We have a question from, thank you, Neha. So we have a question from Mr. Mukilan. So he has asked, servant leadership is intentional or it comes naturally?
Excellent. Good question. It is intentional. It's never natural, particularly in the world we live in, right? The world we live in is all about dog eat dog mentality, right? We want to compete. And even if, I don't know about you, Mukilan, I have been to weddings, and these are all weddings of rich people, right? But when the wedding counters open, everybody seems to be rushing, do not want to follow a line, as if they haven't eaten for 3 days. That's the kind of a mentality we have, right? Have you looked into, I'll give you another relevant example of, have you been in an airport, right? It is still, everybody needs to board the same flight. The flight will not take off unless you board. Still you want to go first, only to wait in the bus, right? So that the natural tendency is self-serving. So for us to be servant leadership, it needs to be intentional, and it is a heart matter. And to summarize, it is putting others first, right? So it has to be intentional. It is not natural. Natural is self-protection, self-serving, right? Self-preservation. For example, when lockdown was announced, right? And we have seen across the world, it is not India alone, right? People are going, just buying whatever they can, clearing off the shelves in the supermarket. Why? Because we want to be self-preservating. We don't want others to have. So it's pretty tough, but it is doable, and it's the most enjoyable way of leading.
All right. Thank you, sir. Praveen, you'd like to ask your question?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, ma'am. Sir, thanks so much for the session, sir.
Thank you, Praveen.
Sir, with your rich experience, how would you have handled the COVID, especially the migrant laborers?
Yeah, to be honest, Praveen, my heart breaks even if I visualize and think about what has happened, right? It was almost, I felt very helpless because one, the need is massive, right? We are talking about 4-5 crores of people. You are locked down in your house. Even if you want to help, you can only help few people, right? So my first reaction was a little helpless, frustrated, but heartbroken. But what I've also learned is, right, in every such thing, you learn a lot, right? The first thing I have learned is gratitude, right? I stopped complaining about anything which I didn't have, right? In fact, everything is there, nothing, but still, if power goes off, you will complain that AC is not working, right? So first thing I stopped is stop complaining and being grateful, and gratitude was the key. The second thing is the respect I have for the migrant workers. There was a beautiful article that was written, or in the interview I have seen, somebody rightly pointed out, these migrant workers are not beggars. They are workers, right? So overnight at 4 hours notice, the biggest retrenchment that has happened in the world is with the migrant workers. In 4 hours, they were out of their work, and we made that many people as beggars because they need to stand in the queue to get their whatever rations, right? So we really need to put our head in shame. Now, your question is, what would I do, right? Depends upon where I am, right? If I'm in a government setup, right, I would look into our policies, right? Because to make that impact, we need to look at, okay, going forward, now that we have seen this, how do we really bring dignity to these people? Because these are the people who build our roads, build our cities, and how do we bring? So I will look at more, if God places me in a government setup, I will look into policy change to impact going forward. In the immediate short term, I can only do that much. Again, we need to mobilize the civil society, because I think one of the mistakes we do is we expect and be critical about the government, right? Now, when government doesn't do, we can crib and write and say, but what is that we can do? The second thing I've learned is, what is that I can do? I can mobilize the civilian society, help whoever we can help, right? Be that role model, be that example, because kindness is always infectious, right? If somebody does it, and we can motivate and inspire others. So these are the things which I can think of. But the word which came to mind is, I think we need to bring dignity to these people going forward. That is one part of my business initiative. As we are initially, I thought I will not do the social enterprise. We will not go to the rural places. Now I'm resetting my own strategy, saying that now that these migrant laborers have gone back to their villages, how can we take work there rather than bringing them back to the this thing? So I think that's my change of thought leadership which has happened because of the migrant crisis.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So, any other questions from anyone?
Suggest us some books on servant leadership, right? You're asking the wrong person, because I must confess, I don't read books because I have a reading disability. If I read 4 pages, I'll go to sleep. I listen to a lot of audios and videos. But there are plenty of books that are written on servant leadership. The old one is called, simply titled, Servant Leadership by Robert Greenleaf. That is one of the early books that has come. It is simply titled Servant Leadership. The latest book which I have referred is Leading Business Beyond Profit. That is available on Amazon. But if you are interested, the best book only book I've read is Lead Like Jesus Revisited, which is another book that is available on Amazon. It is a little expensive, but if you want, you can contact Praveen or me. We have some copies to give as well. Lead Like Jesus book is more about servant leadership, but it is all about how Jesus led others as a servant leader, to the extent he went to wash the feet of his disciples. So that's another book I would recommend. I believe it is available with Proventures. So yes. TS is the best person to contact, or
Yes.
Ratna.
Yes, sir. We'll do that. All right. So any further questions from anyone? Dr. Arun, if you'd like to share anything? Or Mr. Moses?
No, it's a brilliant session, Mr. Mohan Patnaik.
Thank you, Arun.
Yeah.
I would like to ask one question.
Yes, sir.
How to decrease your negativity towards, if you have any negativities?
Excellent question, because it comes to me as well, right? The best way to reduce negativity is to start thinking positive. Okay, as simple as that. For example, I gave you that example when we had the lockdown, right? When I saw the visuals of that migrant laborers, I stopped complaining. Okay, so many times we look into, okay, what else others have and we don't have, and that's where the negativity comes, the judgment comes. But when you start looking at being grateful, the exact word is called contentment. To stop negativity, you should be contented, right? And contentment is not a negative thing. It is not a lack of aspiration. It is not lack of this thing. Contentment, somebody best defined is wanting what you have. Okay. So when you have that, want what you have, then you will stop that negativity. The second thing is being grateful for what you have. There are a lot of things which are free, right? Whether it is nice climate or fresh air or whatever you get, the sunlight. So other ways, for example, I get very negative when I watch news, right? Because 90% of the news is negative, okay, and political. Now, instead of getting frustrated, I have a choice to make. Either I stop watching the news and start reading the paper. It is slightly better, but at least I have some control what to read, what not to read, right? That is one way of doing it. Or look at, okay, where do I get the positive news? I'm not denying the negativity, but what happens is we have this tendency to promote negativity, right? So stop complaining, be grateful, look at the positive sides, and see how you can make somebody else smile. Maybe one last suggestion I have, Arun, which we do in one of our programs on servant leadership called Lead Like Jesus, is this: encouragement and appreciation goes a long way in building others and creating that positive culture, right? Now, it doesn't need to be big thing, right? You pick up a small thing and appreciate and encourage. Sometimes I'll give you what my wife does well. We live in a community in Bangalore, right? It's a pretty large community, upmarket. There are 2 or 4 women who come daily to collect our garbage. Okay, they're the housekeeping staff. My wife, first thing she does after opens the door is wishes them good morning, right, with their names, and that makes their day, right? Nobody even bothers to know their names, and my wife just says good morning by their names, and they feel so happy. And this thing, the little thing, we can make a difference, right? So those are some of the things you can take away.
Okay, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So we have come to the end of the session. So if any further questions are there, you can ask, or I will post the feedback form link in the chat. So you can give your feedback in the form about the session, and please mention your PMI ID there. So if you want us to claim 2 PDUs for you. So the form is given in the chat, so you can go ahead and fill it. And meanwhile, anybody wants to speak to Mohan sir, you can. Mr. Moses, Mr. Vijay Prasad, Mr. Vinay. Anyone wants to share anything?
Mohan sir, this is Vinay here again. I just wanted to have a last question maybe for the day. Like you mentioned, becoming a servant leader is a process. I know while we in the process of becoming a good servant leader, I would say that what are the challenges that we could see and how we as leaders could overcome them?
Yeah, it's a pretty tough question to answer quickly, Vinay. I had a similar question. A couple of years back, I was working for this company, and I was doing a town hall in China, Beijing of all the places, and 1,000 people were there. I was new in the organization, and one of the girl asked the same question: what is your biggest, she didn't know about servant leadership and all that. She said, you have a successful career. What is the biggest leadership challenge you have ever faced? right? And without really, it just came to my mind, and it's still the same answer now, and I guess it will be the same till I leave this world. My answer was myself. If you actually see the two leadership models which we looked at, self-serving and serving, okay? The biggest challenge is the self comes before serving, right? So how do I overcome my selfishness? Servant leadership is all about putting others first. It's all about other-centric. And even if it means I need to sacrifice, if I need to give up, and also serving without expecting something in return, right? So it is a constant battle of dying to self. I need to die to self, and I need to live only for the benefit of others, right? So if you look at Mother Teresa, right, why would she need to come to our country and do what she did, right? It is about completely dying to self. It doesn't happen overnight. It is a process. Constantly, as you die to self, you become a servant leader. There is no magic pill that you can get. So the self need to die, which means the contentment needs to come, which means sacrifice needs to come, generosity needs to come, and more importantly, it is a heart change. It's an inside out. It is not the mind thing. It is the heart needs to have that intent. I'm called to serve, as PS has put, called to serve, right? Maybe this is the last example I will give and close. Maybe 10 years back, my children were very small. My youngest girl was 4 or 5. Daily we used to tell them, okay, we are called to serve. So morning they need to say, I'm called to serve. And in the evening, when they come back, we ask, okay, who did you serve today, right? So we used to ask them, who did you serve? Because morning you said that you are called to serve. And this little girl, because she needs to report back, she used to go to the teacher and say, teacher, can I carry your books? Teacher, can I do something for you? Every day. And one day she turned back and said, why you are asking daily? I need to tell my dad, because evening he's going to ask me, who did I serve? So I can tell that I carried your books, I did this to others. So what I'm saying is, it is a practice. It's a habit of serving, then the lifestyle changes.
Thank you, sir, for the answer.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate all your time. God bless you all. And thanks, PS, and for hosting me as well. And Ratna, thank you so much for coordinating.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us.
Thank
you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, we've come to the end of the session. So we will have our next webinar on the 2nd of July. So we will communicate to you shortly about the program agenda, speaker, and other details. Anything anyone would like to ask further? You can ask. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining. So we will see you shortly in the next webinar, the next upcoming webinar.
All of you, please take a couple of minutes more to complete your feedback. So that will help us to serve you better.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Ratna. I have already filled that.
Thank you, Neha. I've received yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.